Welcome to the Brave Zone, the Brave webinars. And today we are going to talk about mindset shift from employee to entrepreneur. It's a great topic because I know that a lot of people are in need of this. What do you want to get out of this? Why are you here? Because I think that's very important when we're trying to start a learning process to understand why we're here. For some of you, entrepreneurship is a choice. It is something that you have always wanted and you do it because you want to do it. For some of us, it's not a choice and it's a have to for whatever reason. So I'd love to understand a little bit more about your reasons. You know, many people build a business because they love to. I remember my own experience is that I got stressed out working for corporates. I was working in the wee hours of the morning. I had emails going through calls at 3 o'clock in the morning simply because I was dealing with, Europe, America, and I was in Asia at the time. It was quite impossible, but it wasn't their fault. It was actually me as well because I was an achiever and I was kind of a workaholic. And over time, I also realized that being in the corporate world, I was just a little cog in a huge machine. There was very little things I can control. Yet, sometimes you get a great boss, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you get your proposals through and everything, and the regional team is fantastic. Sometimes you just have this really annoying person in the head office that just doesn't really care about anybody else except themselves. And what you're trying to do is the good for the company. They don't care. They just want to get their political agenda in place. So over time, I felt that corporate life turned me into somebody I didn't want to be, someone. And I remember hanging out with my colleagues. We always talked about complaining about the boss and everything, and I had enough self-awareness to know that that's not the type of conversations I'd like to get involved in. In the meantime, I know entrepreneurship was just starting up around me. Gone was a time when everybody just went to school, get a great job in a big Fortune 500 company, and your life was set. But I started understanding more and more about the choices, and I felt like that was enough. I felt like I came to the point where I wanted to start my own business. But for other people, especially during this time, this is why I wanted to make this webinar about the mindset shift, about employee to entrepreneur. Many of you might have been is furloughed perhaps, or many of you have been laid off because of what's happened in corporate. And sometimes I wonder if entrepreneurship is even a choice. Because if you think about it, the cost of living is quite expensive now, right? Many families don't have the luxury of one spouse staying at home with the kids and another spouse making income. It is pretty much a double income living right now. Secondly, we have the medical research and science to help us live longer. Yay! That means if you are retiring at 65, 60, or 67, or whatever your retirement age in your country is, right? That means you have another 20 years, 30 years to live, and you've got to fund that with your pension. Pension used to be great, especially in Western developed countries. I mean, it was never great in my country, but let's say in the UK or in Europe, it used to be great because there was so much of it. And you saw your parents having great pensions and being rich as they retire, and they can buy a home, they can live comfortably, they can really retire. Whereas what we can expect, because the population growth has been kind of smaller, right? People are not having five, six, four kids anymore. They're having one or none, right? That means the people who are paying for our pension is going to be less. Yet there's more and more people that's going to be older. So we have an aging population problem in many developed nations. And the problem with aging population is that your pension fund is going to be super small compared to what your parents or grandparents were. So again, so you've got people are living longer, cost of living is more expensive, and you've got also the uncertainty of corporate. It's almost like, do you have certainty anymore if you join a Fortune 500 company? The thing is, if you don't know how to make money on your own, right? You are always at the mercy of a big corporation who makes decisions in some invisible office somewhere in another nation, right? And suddenly X% of your workforce, X% of your colleagues, including yourself, are furloughed or laid off. So I think whether or not after this coronavirus, after your furlough, after your layoff, whether or not you choose to go back to a corporate, whether or not you choose to work for somebody else, or whether you choose to have your own business, it doesn't matter what your status is. What we're going to talk about is a way of thinking, a way of seeing your life as if you are always an entrepreneur. To me, I think entrepreneurship is not about a status. It's not about a legal thing that you sign and you work for X company, or a legal thing that you sign that you've registered at the business office to start your own business. That's not about that. Entrepreneurship is a mindset. In coaching entrepreneurs for the last 12 years and being an entrepreneur myself, and also in working over the last 22 years, I realized there's a lot of employees that are very entrepreneurial. They go in there, they go in the office, they understand why they do what they do, and they achieve. And they find fulfillment in their own way. There's also entrepreneurs who think like employees. They are technically registered as an entrepreneur. They pay all these taxes as entrepreneurs. However, they think like employees. So they're still playing the employee game, and that's why they struggle with growth. So today is not about your status. That's your choice. But today I want to encourage you to put on an entrepreneurial mindset, whatever you do. Okay, let me stop talking a little bit about the topic. Let me talk a little bit myself. I don't know many of you in this call. It's been a great turnout, by the way, this webinar. I mean, people are just registering. There's a lot of people on this call, and there's a lot of people registering that's hoping to get the recording as well. So I'm excited about this. I know this is a great topic because I know with the current situation, it's quite uncertain. I've lived with a lot of uncertainty. I come from a developing country called Indonesia, although I grew up in the States. So moving back to Indonesia was quite a big shock. You know, there's political instability, there's terrorist bombs. SARS epidemic was, I mean, small compared to what we're having now, but it did happen. Our currency devalued over a couple of weeks from 7,500 rupiah to a US dollar to 16,000 in a matter of weeks. And I was selling imported products at the time, so we had to increase prices by 400 to 600%. I had um, safety safety issues right outside my office. We had riots. I couldn't go home until at night. I had to weave through debris, fire, and demonstrations and stuff like that. But I am always grateful to have grown up in the work environment with chaos, because I think with chaos it gets you really resilient when uncertainty strikes. When I moved to Singapore, everything was so nice and everything was so structured, but I also found that if I wasn't careful, I could lose a bit of resilience because everything was so comfortable. So 20 years of business achievement in developing economies taught me how to be a despite person, not a because person. I'm not the type of people who say, well, I can't do this because. I try not to be that kind of person. If I catch myself doing that, I go get help, or I read something, or I set my mind straight again. Try to be a despite person. I will do this despite of anything else that's going on. You know, I will always try to achieve my goal despite whatever's going on. Let's find a creative way to do it. You know, the coronavirus has taught us to be a despite person, and I think that's also the key thing, the key difference between an employee and entrepreneur. Employees have a lot of reasons why their projects don't get done. Employee thinking, yeah, employee thinking, you are just a small cog in a big, huge machine. There's lots of people to blame. Entrepreneur, you are forced to be a despite person. You've got your business to protect, you've got your staff to pay for, you've got, you know, your dreams to achieve. You need to achieve it despite of. So let's understand more about that difference as we go further. I have a psychology degree from UCLA. However, I learned a lot more about psychology, leadership, and everything when I did business and when I was involved in nonprofit organizations. My business skills come from about 11 years in the Fortune 500 companies, turning around different types of divisions, different types of businesses, selling, marketing. That's where my business skills come from. managing the P&L, operations, etc. And then when I own my own business, obviously it's like I have to do everything. And I was equipped with business coaching skills because that was the franchise. I bought a business coaching franchise. Now I own two companies in Indonesia that's being run by my team. And I've dabbled in book writing. I can't say I'm super good at it, but I have to say it gives me I just want to release the information. I want to share the information. So if you do want the finer distinctions between a good salesperson and a great salesperson, if you are an experienced salesperson who just wants to convert a little bit more and know the finer distinctions, go get my book in How to Make More Money in Sales, because it's not for basic salespeople. It's just for people who want that finer distinction. When I arrived in the UK, I thought, well, I wanted to amplify my impact by helping people get through the mental game of business. It's no longer about just business strategy, but it's about how you think. And a lot of people I see, a lot of companies, a lot of self-employed professionals, they are caught in the fear zone. They have an imposter syndrome. They don't believe about themselves. They have a dream, but there's something that limits them. Let's say an employee who wants to be an entrepreneur as well. They want to move on, but they're afraid, right? So what I do is I reignite that flame inside you, and I help you find that strength that you can work with. And I find you help that your voice, your uniqueness, and I get you sharper business strategies so you can move out of the fear zone into your brave zone. So what I like to work with, what I like to niche is the self-employed market. I do work with all kinds of businesses, obviously, but what I find is now is a time where self-employment sometimes is no longer a choice. Okay. And with self-employment, it's interesting because typically self-employed people, especially in the service business, you sell yourself and you work by yourself. And having moved to the UK, I know that staff isn't cheap, right? So you can't just go and hire 3 people in the first year or something. I remember when I was coaching coaches in the UK, they said, "Oh yeah, my target market is business £1 million turnover." And I said, "Great, that's how many staff is that?" It's like, "Oh, 5." And I'm like, wow. In Indonesia, it'd be like 10, 20 staff. It's very slim. So it's very important for me to help you get to know your strengths and your role and your voice and how to put yourself into your business, especially if you come from corporate. You've been contaminated by other people's vision, other people's culture, other people's rules, and you've never really been asked, what do you want? What do you stand for? It's just a rule book from HR and just say, here's the policies and procedures, go follow that. And you're like, okay, I'm a good employee, I'm following that. And then when you get into your own business, the first question you have to ask is, who am I and what do I stand for? What is this business about? What are you trying to build? And this is something that's often not clear, especially if you're not used to answering those kinds of questions. What is the essence of you? And what are the questions that you're afraid to often ask yourself? Right? So these are the types of projects that I like to work with. So today, we will cover a few things. Again, I want to describe more in depth about the difference between an employee way of thinking and business owners. Then let's discover some of the common mindset mistakes that will cost your business time and money. And this is the fun part. Well, it's not really fun, but I want you to know just how many roles you're juggling and how to leverage your time. So my objective through all this is to increase your likelihood in success and of success in your life and your work. Simply because I think if you can shift your thinking from employee to entrepreneur thinking, right, it will affect all aspects of your life. You will feel that you are so much more in control of your life, your emotions, your moods, your what you choose to do to fulfill yourselves. You will be a better role model for your kids and the people around you. You will be able to influence others, to coach others, to counsel others who are still experiencing difficulty in their lives. So it first starts with you. So let's get started. I will promise to you, I will not be just a motivator, rah, rah. Let's talk real education. Let's talk real content today. Tough questions. You won't have to answer them in this chat, but I will leave you with tough questions. So I hope you have a pen and paper ready, or some kind of gadget that you can take notes in, because my guess is after this you'd like to do a little bit of self-reflection. You will get strategies and ways of thinking you can use immediately. Okay. And if you want to take the next step and you want to understand yourself, I'll show you how to do that later. So at the end, so I've been getting feedback that my webinar is super content rich, is fantastic. However, after 1 hour, everybody's kind of brain dead and saying, "Oh my God, there's just so much stuff." So what I've been trying to do in the last few webinars is have a little chat session at the end. So let's see if we can have a little, 10, 15 minutes at the end to kind of have you tell me what value you got and answer any of your questions and maybe even have a little discussion of something. If you're in the UK, I know that at 11 o'clock, 11 a.m. today, we are having a moment of silence for the people who have been, sacrificing themselves and working for the NHS and people who died. So I'm going to leave it a little bit early, like maybe I hope to finish by 10:55 so that you can prepare for that moment of silence. And I think that's a very important thing for us to respect the people who have been so helpful. Entrepreneurship and employee. It's not a status on paper, it is a way of thinking. And I'm going to apologize if every time I say employee, I'm going to paint a very negative picture of employee. Again, it's a way of thinking. And again, I want to say a lot of employee are good ones are thinking like entrepreneurs. That's why they're so good. But I've got to label this way of thinking in some ways. I'm going to call it employee way of thinking. Okay. And so, but I'm in no way saying that all employees are bad. Okay. Only employees who think like employees are bad. Okay. Or according to what I call employee thinking. Employee thinking is all about I work for someone else, whereas entrepreneurs is I work for myself and my family. Okay. I work for someone else means I never really think about what I want in my life. I work for someone else. I work for money. I follow. Okay. Whereas entrepreneur is even though you are, legally working for someone else on paper, in your heart, you work for yourself and your family. You work for yourself and your dreams if you don't have a family yet. When I was in corporate, a lot of people noticed that difference in me. My follow up was very good. I retained clients very well, won a few awards about sales and profit achievements, etc. Why? Yes, it unfortunately made me a bit of a workaholic, but I loved what I did. I love learning about things. I love my best proof of learning is achieving. I love helping my clients because they're my clients. I take that ownership. And when people ask me, why do you work? Of course, the money is great, the bonus is great, but at the same time, I work so I can grow. I have that personal dream. For me, my dreams is to be the best version of myself before I die. So I grow. I love growing. And every time I face a challenge, it's like, ooh, opportunity to grow. Right. So I was working for myself at that time and my dreams of personal growth. Working for someone else, sometimes I do above and beyond. Why? Because their targets are just way too small. I want to do more. I want to prove to myself I can do more. And it showed. That's why I tried to resign a few times because I wanted to try something else, and they always kept me back. Every 18 months, I would ask for a different type of role. I went from technician, so, service technician, fixing machines and everything, because we were in an industrial kind of company. I actually did 8 months of that, and I went to corporate sales because I wanted to learn how to sell in the office, not service machines in the back. And I excelled in that 1.5 years, corporate sales award out of 138 countries. Then I said, right, I know how to do sales. Now I want to do marketing because if I understand what comes before sales, I could be a better businesswoman. So they offered me a job as a marketing manager for the Southeast Asia region and then the East Asia region. So 11 countries in total. And I was helping them implement different kinds of new programs so that they can sell better. Because I came from sales and technician, I understood the field. And then after sales, marketing, technical, and then I said, all right, I want to know how to run a P&L. I want to know how to fix a big business problems. So I volunteered myself to fix a division that was dying in a different country. So I went to that country, fixed it up for 18 months. You know, the business got awards. The team, as a team, we won sales and profit award. It's doing well. Then I challenged myself to do the same thing for a company that had been losing profits for 5 years. And this time it wasn't a product business, because all this time I was in the product business. And I wanted to know what it felt like to sell services, an intangible, you know. So I went to do pest control, and that was a totally service business, learning how to deal with people, how to, I mean, your product was basically people. The amount of chemicals you use in pest control was very minimal. So it was all about a people business, and I enjoyed it. It was like high profits. It was a headache, but you didn't have product failures, because we didn't really count on the product. So I learned a lot of that. And so every 18 months, I just kept trying new things. And of course, my benchmark for myself is I've got to meet the numbers, I've got to meet the results. And then I can say that I've learned. I can say that I've done it. You know, I can't just say, oh, I've learned, and then I'm bored now, let's keep going. No, I have to achieve. So that's the difference. Whereas someone who is working for someone else tends to just follow. They don't have clarity about why they do what they do. Whereas an entrepreneur has real clear clarity about why they do what they do. As a result, because they don't have clarity, employee thinking people who work for someone else, they're good at following. Whereas when you're an entrepreneur, it's all about you set your own target. And that target could be higher than the target that your company set for you. And of course, if you are an entrepreneur, legally an entrepreneur, you know this. You have no boss. Nobody's setting targets for you. So you have to set your own target. An employee gets a rule book, follow the company culture, 12 points of culture, whatever it is, right? An entrepreneur, you set your own culture. What am I all about? What do I stand for? What are my business values? Okay, so that's something you have to think about yourself. Employee tends to be reactive. This is employee thinking, yeah? A lot of employees are good, but the really like challenged ones, they tend to be reactive. You tell me what to do, I do it. There's a problem, I solve it. There's no anticipation, there's no forward thinking. Whereas entrepreneurs are very good at being proactive, anticipating. Okay, it's probably also because entrepreneurs take time to learn outside of working hours. They have that hunger to learn, whereas employees will read a book if they are told to, right? So employee thinking is all about, I will be reactive even about my own self-development. Oh, I'm furloughed. Okay, I've got nothing to do. What do? I'll go play on my gadget. Instead of, if you have an entrepreneurial thinking in you, you use this furlough time, you're getting paid 80% for not doing anything. Go pick up a course. Go do something. Go deliver food or something like that. Do something if you really need the money. And many of you are here in this webinar. That shows that a bit of you have that entrepreneurial thinking already. So that's a good use of your time. Employees are bound by titles and roles. Oh, that's not my job. Oh, it's not my title, therefore I can't do this. Whereas entrepreneur is bound by your mission and purpose. I remember a time where I was this little, Southeast Asia, in my days of running the marketing team in Southeast Asia in the annual report of my Fortune 500 company at that time was called the rest of the world. And this is literally, I'm in Singapore, one of the biggest economies in Southeast Asia. And they called us the rest of the world. Of course, if you compare to Latin America, the US, EMEA, we're nothing. But at that time, that was how insignificant we were, even in our corporate head office. But we had a problem, you see, being insignificant. New product introductions took so long. It took 6 to 9 months to change a color of one of our products. The problem with that is sometimes the color makes a whole lot of difference when you're trying to compete. The smell of the product, we were selling laundry detergents. The smell of the, people want smell in Asia, whereas in the US, laundry chemicals and everything in Europe, you don't want smell. Smell means it's not properly clean. In Asia, we like the flowery smell, the jasmine smell, the whatever smell, because that feels like, oh, our laundries are clean. It's a different way of thinking. But because we were an American company, we had to follow by American way of thinking. And I said, that's my team on the field are losing sales and losing market share because we don't have the right smell. And that's ridiculous. You want me to wait 6 to 9 months? So I fought this through. I went beyond my title, my role, my authority, and I fought this through. And I remember I had a business trip to Minnesota, which is, in the United States. And the operations team was so annoyed at me because I wasn't minding my own business. So the vice president of operations for the entire world, he was an Italian guy, must have been from the south of Italy. He really sounded like the Godfather. But anyway, he took me out for a really nice steak lunch with his Asia vice president, who was more relevant to my region. Basically to tell me off, basically to tell me to just mind my own business. He says, Cynthia, you don't understand how it works. You don't understand. You come from sales. You don't understand the operations. La, 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 la. Why don't you just mind your own business? And I was like, this steak is really good. And I just kept eating because I just like, you don't understand sales. You don't understand how we meet numbers. Okay, you don't understand the culture. I didn't say that. I didn't have to say that. I didn't care because I knew at that point I did not have the communication skills to speak. I was like 26 and he was like 55, almost 60 probably. And I just didn't understand how to work with them. To be honest, I could have been better. But that's just my entrepreneurial thinking. Like, I'm just going to get this done. I don't care what my titles and my roles is. I have a need in my part of the world, and these people can meet my needs. A few weeks later, with all the little battles going over emails and everything like that, we got our 6 to 9 month process reduced to 6 weeks. Why? Because I showed them we have technical expertise in our region. Why is it that we have to go all the way to St. Paul, Minnesota to get this done? So can certain things be handled by our region? It was the creative way of thinking rather than just following the rules. It was done. We can change colors in 6 weeks. Okay, so this is some of the ideas. I'm not saying this to impress you, but to impress upon you, then when you're thinking like an entrepreneur, even if you work for a Fortune 500 company that regards you as the rest of the world, you can get things done. That's the difference. Employee thinking, you invest your money, you invest your time to get money. We sell ourselves, whatever your salary is. Let's say your salary is 5,000 pounds or 2,000 pounds a month, right? You sell your 8 hours a day, or sometimes 10 or 12 hours a day, a little bit of weekends. You sell your time for that salary. You're telling your company, my time is worth less than 2,000 pounds a month. Therefore, I will take 2,000 pounds a month and I'll give you that time. My time is worth less than 2,000 pounds a month. Therefore, I will accept the salary of 2,000 pounds because I value my time less than that. So don't ever complain about your salary. You have accepted that your time is worth less than that, because that's how exchange works, right? You accept a value that is greater than what you're giving away, and you think that's fair. Whereas if you think about an entrepreneur, you invest money to get more time. I value my time more than 2,000 pounds to do this certain task. Therefore, I will hire an employee, pay them 2,000 pounds so that I can get them to do this stuff for me. Or I will outsource this to a consultant, pay them 2,000 pounds a month so that I don't have to do this. See, I value my time more than 2,000 pounds. So I value my money less than my time. So I will give my money away so that I can get something I value more, which is time. This is a huge difference way of thinking. So don't ever complain about your salary because you've accepted that. And actually, if you think about it, your company, a company that hires an employee, values your time more than you do. Okay, so this is just a different way of thinking. When you're an employee way of thinking, when you have an employee way of thinking, you're thinking, I'm part of this team. When you're an entrepreneur, you build a team. Okay. And one of a business mentors, his name is Brad Sugars. He owns a company that I bought into, which is ActionCOACH. This is a business coaching company. He told us a story when he was a salesperson. He was maybe about 20 years old. He got a job as a salesperson, and he built a team, even though he wasn't supposed to. I mean, he didn't have any headcount. From his salary, he hired a secretary to make all his appointments for him and do all his admin and his paperwork and sit at his desk. Because at that time he was working for 3 companies, okay, as a salesperson. And because he was relieved of all that admin stuff, because he had his secretary, he can get 3 different commissions, okay. And he was a very productive salesperson because he didn't have to do all the admin stuff. So of course his colleagues complained. It's like, why does he get to have a secretary? He says he's not using any company's money. He's paying his own secretary to do his job. So basically, even as an employee, he had an entrepreneurial mindset. He built a team. He outsourced all his stuff so that he could be more effective in what he did best, which is selling. Okay, so it's brilliant. It's a total mindset. It's nothing to do with what you sign on paper. Employee way of thinking. There's always a reason. When there's a failure, oh, it's that person's fault, or it's the regional office's fault, it's the headquarters fault, it's the coronavirus fault. There's always a reason. Entrepreneur way of thinking is I am the reason. The buck stops with you. I mean, there's really nothing else. Even if coronavirus hits, I mean, it's unfortunate. It's a very serious thing. But you know, and my last webinar, you can see it on my YouTube channel. It's called 10 Ways to Crisis Proof Your Business. And what we started with was this whole concept of what have we learned about this as business people? Why can't our business be more crisis proof? And for some of you, it's because the government said you should shut it down and there's really nothing you can do about it, okay? But in as much as the coronavirus is to be blamed for a lot of things, right? And it is serious, there's probably, if you really took the time to investigate more and introspect more about your business, you could probably find 5 or 6 things that you could have done better to crisis proof for next time. Okay, it's too late to think about it this time. For next time. For instance, I know that some companies still in 2020 have a belief that meetings are not effective unless it's done face to face. That's out the door now. Okay, and I don't know what's going to happen after lockdown is lifted, because it's slowly getting lifted now. Will they ever be comfortable meeting around a tight boardroom? They'll probably start with masks. Many of them don't have a contingency plan. They have plan A, but they don't have plan B. Okay, so maybe now what we've learned is every time you make a plan A, you've got to have a plan B. Many people don't have enough cash reserves. Okay, so at the time when the virus locked everything down, they only maybe had about 6 weeks of cash, whereas some businesses are very good at making sure they're cash rich. Okay, so a lot of people are switching probably from revenue and profit thinking into cash. There's 3 different things: revenue, profit, cash, totally different ways of making it work in your business. And if you don't understand business finance and all you do is just sell and be good at what you do, you're at risk of not being crisis proof when another crisis comes in. So again, business finance, if you don't understand business finance, you're not crisis proof. You're probably not making wise enough decisions with regards to your cash strategies, things like that. There's in that webinar, we talk about things about finance, things about team, things about marketing and clients. So go ahead and watch that for more. But basically, this is a way that I want to express that as an entrepreneur, even when things like this happen, you are still the reason why your business will bounce back or why your business cannot bounce back. It is the way you do it. Just around our area, we live in Bath. Restaurants have been closed. One of the favorite restaurants up on the hills, it's called the Circus Restaurant. Great food. When you come to Bath, around between the circle and between the Circus and the Royal Crescent, there's a nice restaurant called the Circus Restaurant, owned by a wonderful gentleman, run by his kids. When coronavirus struck, of course, he had to close the restaurant. Until today, he is still doing food deliveries, vegetable boxes. He's still open to accept. So he turned his restaurant into a bit of a fresh produce shop. Okay, so at first I think he was just clearing up his fridge. Okay, we sell vegetables and flour and everything like that, and eggs, and people bought it because the supermarket was basically empty. But over time, he just kept doing it. And now I think he's got 3 vans around Bath just delivering things. And you can argue that, oh, I can't do anything because my restaurant's been closed. But you are the reason why you have or don't have any creative ideas. So what Jeffrey did was basically he turned his whole business model in a different way. And I know a lot of food and beverage places have done that. In Ireland, I was watching on BBC News the other day. In Ireland, uh, when the food and beverage outlets were made to shut, if you recall, it was around the middle of March, close to St. Patrick's Day. St. Patrick's Day, beer drinking day. A lot of pubs have been stocking up on beer, Guinness, especially Guinness, etc. Now, the problem with kegs of beer, even though they're in a sealed keg, they have an expiry date of a few months. And yeah, I mean, I guess in June or September, you can open up the keg and try to drink it, but it just doesn't taste the same. Especially Guinness, you want something, the taste is really important. Well, any beer, if you can argue that. So a week ago, I think it was last week, and I'm sure the British people on this call would remember, there was a bit of news on TV that some Irish pub that's got like 300 liters of Guinness stored and is going to expire very soon, decided to make a vehicle. It's hard to describe, but it's basically make a vehicle where they would have Guinness on the tap. They would door to door and knock on the door and ask, do you want Guinness? And then they say, yes, okay. So fresh out of the tap Guinness, and it's still fresh because it's only been a month or so. And they will serve it on this Guinness tray, and they will just leave it at your door. You take your glasses, they'll take the tray back, and they go to the next house. And it's absolutely genius. Unfortunately, they have an alcohol license problem because they say, the government says, well, you had the alcohol license for your pub, but not for your little van. I don't know. He was just trying to keep his employees working. He was just trying to turn over a bit of money. But I mean, in concept, forget all the legal stuff. In concept, I think that was great. I think that was really creative. And I wouldn't be surprised that if that concept stayed after the coronavirus, because if you think about it, it will take time for people to be comfortable to go out drinking in a stuffy pub, without social distancing. You can't really get cozy with like 2 meters apart. And, if you understand British pubs or Irish pubs, they're quite close and they're quite small. So I don't know. I think that's genius. But that's about thinking like an entrepreneur. There's always a reason why you can't do business. But it's all up to you. I am the reason. Okay. I remember when SARS hit, we were not allowed to go see our customers, not even talk to our customers. The problem is SARS was kind of, at least for my region at the time, the first shock, like, oh my God, there's I guess if you're from Africa, you have Ebola and everything like that. But SARS in 2001, it was like, what do you mean? The economy just shut down. I mean, hotels went from 95% occupancy to 0 occupancy in overnight. And people were so not used to cleaning the right way, if you say. So my whole client base were hotels at the time, and they were so busy cleaning, right? Because now they realized just how important hygiene was. They didn't have time to talk to me, build relationships, say hi, or anything like that. So my rapport building relationship, my usual relationship building route was shut. I couldn't see my clients. I couldn't meet my clients, and they were busy. But at the same time, my fear was, after this is over, they've lost profits. They've lost sales. My chemicals are very expensive. Will they go to a competitor? So I've got to still build relationships. I've got to add value, even though I'm not technically allowed to see them. So what I did was I used to write safety hints. This is what I call safety hints. How to wash your hands. You know, the happy birthday twice. In 2001, I was already writing articles about singing happy birthday twice, and this is how you wash your hands for 20 seconds. I was talking about cleaning surfaces, cleaning air, anything like that, keeping yourself healthy. And I faxed them. Yes, fax, 2001. We didn't have WhatsApp chat. We had fax. I faxed them to every one of my clients. And when the epidemic ended and we could see our clients again, I remember walking down the back of the house of the hotel, one of the biggest hotels I was serving, and I saw my safety hints being on the bulletin board. And I said, Mark, you know, he was the head chef at the time. I said, you put up the safety hints. It's like, yeah, every time we got that fax from you, it was so good. It was so simple. It was one page, and we put it up there. And of course, my company's logo was up there as well. And that was why we're really grateful for you for doing that. I didn't make any money for writing that, but what happened was I kept all my clients, and that was just worth it for me. And that's the reason why they stayed with me, was because I kept adding value, right? So entrepreneurial thinking. I am the reason why I'm successful. I am the reason why my company is successful. I have no other people to blame, not including pandemics. Okay. So that way of thinking will free you from a lot of stress. Actually, I think a lot of stress comes from feeling out of control, feeling like I can't control the situation. The great thing about entrepreneur thinking, in my opinion, is that when you set that for yourself, you can control a lot of things. Yeah, but it starts with taking that ownership. I think some of the stressful things, and when I coach top executives in banks and insurance companies, things like that, they're stressed because there's so much of it they can't control. And it's about giving back that power to you. And I always ask them, well, what can you control? I know there's lots of things you can't control. What can you control? And when they are reset to that way of thinking, they find 2 or 3 things that they can do better, that 2 or 3 ways they can be a better leader. And sometimes that's all you can do. Mindset comes from understanding your identity iceberg. That switch from, okay, so how do you switch from employee thinking to entrepreneur thinking? On the left with this lady on the laptop here, that's what my representation of what entrepreneurial thinking it is. If it is to be, it is up to me. Whereas on the right, I put a picture of, people clapping in top executive clothes. That's how I represent employee thinking. So, it's all about when you want to switch, right? It's all about understanding that you are basically an iceberg. The results, the behaviors, the actions you do is on top of the water. People can see that, right? But the reason you behave a certain way, the reason why you make certain decisions is because of your set of skills. Employee way of thinking comes also because you don't expand your skills. All you do and all you know is that operational skill that you've been working on. You don't expand yourself. You don't develop yourself to understand other types of skills. You behave a certain way because you believe certain things. Employee way of thinking could be you believe that you are not in control. You believe that you cannot be creative. You believe that you're restricted with your roles and your positions. You believe that it is not up to you to make that change. And if you want to switch that, it's as simple as switching your beliefs and saying, I believe I can make that change. I believe I am empowered. I believe I was employed by somebody else. I'm not working for them. I am working for my own personal growth. Okay. Values. The important thing about employees, the values are things that you regard as important. Employee way of thinking, sometimes they value following, they value pleasing others, they value being part of a crowd, not standing out, right? They value following the rules, right? Whereas entrepreneurship thinking, you value success, you value your own dreams, you value your time. Okay. And this is something that is different. The identity, of course, I am an employee versus I am an entrepreneur. Again, despite all your legal status, it's very interesting to see a lot of entrepreneurs actually think like employees. That's why their growth is quite stagnant. Okay, they wait instead of they do something about it. And it also is that iceberg of yours is shaped by your environment. If you, one of the things I had to switch when I formed my own company, even though it was a franchise, so technically it wasn't really pure entrepreneurship. I had a system to follow and everything, but I did detach myself from some of my employee friends. Remember, I told you some coffee conversations, drink conversations are all about complaining. Thankfully, I was quite self-aware at that time to realize that's not the right environment for me. A lot of it also was like, we get money, we got a big salary, and then we spend it on drinks. You know, we got a huge day ahead of us, but we'd stay out late in a pub and we come home at 1 and try to kind of function at 8 a.m. again, you know, and we'll do that repeatedly. That's not a healthy environment for me. And I decided to get out of that, not because I didn't love my friends. I'm actually back in that environment. I enjoy them in a different way, and we've all kind of grown up anyway, so we're a little bit more mature. But at that time, I left that environment because I wasn't strong enough to change myself when I was in it. It wasn't their fault. It was, they were just being them, and they are loving people. They're lovely people, and that's why I'm still friends with them now. But I had to pause, you know, and it was like I disappeared for a while, and I kind of found myself, and I hung out with different kinds of people, only to find that I one day I'll go back and I'll be a stronger me, you know, and then I can participate and enjoy their friendship, but not, but I've already found myself, you know. So it was very interesting that when I came back, it was a bit awkward at the time, and I was like, oh, you know, I don't want to go back and be that kind of person again. But I realized it was all when I changed from within, you know, I could handle it in a different way. And to be fair, I saw that they were just loving people with a different kind of lifestyle, and they weren't experiencing the stress that I was experiencing at the same time, and they became such a great support group for me later in life. So it was just interesting how your environment, sometimes you have to limit yourself from certain types of people that shape your iceberg in a certain way, you know. That's why let's say you don't hang out with role models that frequently. You can always hang out with them in audiobooks, YouTube videos, books that you read physically, um, and any way you choose to learn podcasts. You can always hang out. There's so much. I mean, who do you want to learn from? Who do you admire in terms of their entrepreneurial mindset? Google them. They'll have some kind of educational material somewhere, and that's how you shape it. You know, again, we have been gifted with this lockdown with the gift of time. The question is, how are you using it? Okay, and if you're using it to just do nothing, then that's why when you come out of this lockdown, my question is, will you be more entrepreneurial in your thinking? Will you be a better person, or will you just be the same person minus 2 months? Will you have just lost 2 months of your life? Okay, and it's not always about reading success stories about work. For some of you, it's all about regaining your family life, regaining your life balance, regaining your health. Will you be a better person? Okay, and this is my challenge for you. Fortunately or unfortunately, the lockdown isn't going to last for much longer. My guess is by May, the government will have decided that the economy can't just be frozen. So they'll start lifting and lifting and lifting. We've all got to be conscious of it, but we've all got to be careful so that we don't have reinfections. Travel bans may not be lifted, but it's going to start changing, right? The question is, you've got this much time left. You've got a week, couple of weeks. You know, it's if you haven't already started to become a better person or to learn or to develop yourself, if you haven't used your time wisely, do it now. You don't have much time in lockdown left, in my opinion. Okay, so, and when everything opens up again, it'll be different. Business will never be the same. This has been quite a dramatic change in the way we look at things. Gosh, 10:50 already. You see, this is what happens. All right, this is what happens when I'm passionate. So we may not have time for chats, but anyway, I love you all. 8 common mistakes that delay your growth. Mindset mistakes. Number 1, fear. Why is it so important for you to move out from the fear zone to the brave zone? Fear of making decision has been the cause for a lot of business mistakes. Fear of making a decision, going around and around in circles, trying to get everybody's approval, where at the same time your competitor is just going very quickly. Okay. And this is, just make a darn decision, even if it's the wrong one. Either you win or you learn, right? But it's that fear of making decision that sometimes delay your growth. Blaming others, blaming others is the fear way of saying, you don't have to change, you don't have to grow. Let's find point your finger at somebody, find someone to point a finger on. That is your fear saying, I don't want you to grow. I don't want you to change. Fear is just trying to keep you safe. And sometimes not changing is very safe, isn't it? So let's blame others. But because of that, you don't change, you don't grow, you don't know how to do it better next time. And that's why your growth is stagnant. The need for certainty. I think certainty is quite a myth, isn't it? Change is the only constant and all those buzz phrases, but it's true. I mean, we have learned so much about uncertainty. Are we still in a lockdown next week or not? I'm not sure. Okay, are we going to be allowed to do this or not? Not sure. Will we still have flour in the supermarket or not? Not sure. Okay, will we still have, we tried to get eggs in the supermarket yesterday. There were no eggs. I was like, what is this, panic buying again? It was fine for a couple of weeks, but now no more eggs. It's uncertainty. So we just have to live with no eggs. I mean, that's fine. So the need for certainty is almost a myth, when it comes to living real life. And again, it's coming out of fear. Being in the wrong network, surrounding yourself with the wrong people, will delay your growth. Fear of investing. Okay, again, entrepreneurial thinking, you value your time more than you value your money. Now, I'm not saying go invest in stupid things. I'm thinking like when you have a dream that's big enough. Right now, I've got a very big dream. I've always wanted to do it. For 12 years, I've built a business coaching firm that is top ranked in the world, but I was always growing my firm for the sake of having clients for other coaches. I have 6 coaches that I have to feed. Moving to the UK the last 9 months, 10 months, whatever month we're on, I realized this is my time to grow myself. I've always had that potential in me. So I just invested in a huge marketing project for me. And that is more than what my business is generating at this point. And I said, you know what? I'm going to invest the resources because that person's got the skills and it's got the experience that I don't have and I can't be bothered to learn, right? It's going to go, and I'm going to accelerate much faster if I invest money into it rather than trying to be cheap and do it myself. So that's going to make me grow. But sometimes it's that whole, oh, I'm cheap, I can just do it myself. Oh, I can't justify that right now, I can do it myself. And that goes long and long. Of course, you have to balance your family needs as well as your business needs. I think you know that part. I'm just saying that sometimes also that sometimes you have the money, but you're keeping it for yourself because you're thinking, I'm not going to invest it in my own growth. What you're basically saying is that my success is not worth that investment. Okay, so you got to understand what's worth it for you. I know that I work with people on their marketing, on their message, and I charge them a certain money. And at first it was difficult for them to make that decision because a lot of people that I work with are still in the growth phase. Okay, and some of them are even in the startup phase. They've just wanted to be self-employed. But after 2 sessions, they said, I can't believe you've done all that in 2 sessions. And I said, yep, I work really fast, right? And is it worth it? It's like, definitely. Okay, so again, you can go and do it yourself, or you can spend 4 hours with me and get it done. Which one's faster? Okay, so it's all about finding the experts for the things you want as well. Lack of general business knowledge. It's a mindset of not wanting to learn general business knowledge, being so comfortable. Let's say I was always a salesman and a salesman and a salesman and a salesman. I didn't grow myself. I wouldn't understand finance. I wouldn't understand operations. I'd be too specialized to be an entrepreneur. So entrepreneurial mindset is also a generalized business knowledge. You need to understand all that. Lack of planning and structure and systems, thinking, oh, I'm so good. Entrepreneurs are just off the cuff. No, great entrepreneurs plan. Great entrepreneurs know how to structure things. Okay, so these are some of the common mistakes. And personal distractions, not having that space. Despite the lockdown, I've been working from 9 to 5. Sometimes I give myself a break. I go for a longer walk with my partner and I say, okay, I'm going to end at 3 today, or I'm going to start at 11 today because we want to take a longer walk in the morning. But personal distractions, it's so important, as you know, to have a structure, even if you're working from home, okay? And this is what needs to happen. I want to go through the latter part. Now we'll spend at least 5 minutes on this, but this is your roles of multiple functions that you have to remember. I don't care how small or how large your company is. Okay. And especially, I don't even care if you don't have a company, right? Everybody has the same organizational structure. So let's say I am I have a coaching company, the Brave Zone. It's me, myself, and I don't have any employees at this point. I have some people I outsource things to, but I realize that I am an owner. I am the general manager of my company. And unless I outsource this, there's always an admin function. Like I've got to do my VAT returns after this. This is my job for the day. And I've got to, after this call, I've got to do some admin, send you guys some emails. That's admin, and I've got to do this and that. Okay, I've got to organize things. There's always an admin role, however big or small your company is. There's always a marketing role, however big or small. Marketing is lead generation. And it could be about public relations. It could be letting the community out there know what you do, adding value to the community, getting your name out there. There's always that function. There's always some kind of lead generation role, whether you're doing a strategic alliance with a partner, or whether you're making an ad somewhere, or whether you are, networking, or whether you're doing stuff that's, joining a community so you'll be more known. Marketing is always there, whether or not you have staff to do it. There's always a sales function in every company, no matter how big and small. You have the sales manager, who is the strategist of how to sell, what's the script, what's the sales funnel, and then there's the executor, which is the sales executive. And if you don't have two people, guess what? It's you, all right? So it's all you. There's always an operations function, no matter how big or small your company is. That's your operations manager, okay? And again, if you don't have anyone, that's you too. And there's always about delivery of your promise. So let's say you're a graphic designer. The operations manager is thinking about what is a strategy for delivery. The operations staff is the executor. And if you don't have anyone, guess what? It's you, right? And then there's always that purchasing function. What do I need to purchase to enable me to deliver? People manager, HR, whatever it is. And, if you don't have anyone, obviously it's you that you have to manage, right? It's you, your data, and however that's registered. Of course, that doesn't mean anything if you don't have anybody working for you. You don't have to recruit, fine. But if you want to recruit outsourced staff, that's you too. And people development is how you develop yourself, how you make sure you have time for self-development, that's you. And there's always a finance function in every organization. Okay, it could be about bookkeeping. If you're still doing it yourself, that's you. Finance manager is also the person who is analyzing your finance. So on the top level, you're making sure that your P&L is healthy. If you don't have anyone, that's you. And then, of course, there's all this other things that you have to do, like tax, admin stuff. Okay, that's all you. So the whole point of this, okay, is that this structure exists whether or not you are a one-man show or one-woman show, or whether you have a team of 20 people. Okay. The question is, which one are you good at? Which one should you focus on to get the most impact for your business? And which one should you leverage or hire people for? That's the question that you decide. Okay. I've decided that the marketing function is right now the stuff that I'm going to leverage out. Very soon, it's going to be very leveraged out. Sales for my type of industry and delivery, which is operations, is not something I can delegate. It's me. Recruitment of outsourcing partners and in the future people, I will recruit staff, is me, okay, at this point. But I might get some help from outsourced people. Finance, I've got my accountant. Okay, I've got all my accountant doing all that. Okay, so I've decided finance was the first thing I vented out. Although tax is still at this point me, only because for the first round, I'd like to learn how this works. Tax was always something that I never really understood. And I realized that it's also because I had a great finance team back home. And that's always something that somebody did for me. And it's not that complicated to do it for a one-man show now. And I want to do it at least for the first 12-month cycle. Don't be surprised if I will hand it off later. I just want to end with this because want to make sure that despite everything that you are going through, the credit belongs to you who are actually in the arena, in the ring. The face, your face, who is marred with dust and sweat, fighting for your dreams, who strives valiantly, who errs and may fall and fall again, because there's no effort without error and shortcoming. So you will get criticized, you will get mocked, people think you're different. But as Theodore Roosevelt says, forget all those. They're not experiencing what you're experiencing. You are in your brave zone, and that's what you need to look at. So I encourage you to step out from your fear zone and into your brave zone. And if you want to work with me, if you want to understand, if you want to take actions to confront your own shackling perceptions of yourself, come talk to me. If you want clarity on your purpose and sharpen your business, sharpen your message, we can always talk. And I do want to offer at the end of this a free Brave Discovery session, 30 minutes, absolutely no obligations, completely confidential, to talk about what is it that you don't see. Let's say some of you want to go into your own business, you want to have a better message for yourself, you want to understand your unique selling point, you want to understand some of your limiting beliefs. That could be a session that you want to register for. Just click thebravezone.com and then book a discovery session, and you'll see my time schedule over there. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure serving you, and I hope to see you in the next webinar.